right. Okay. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode, to another monthly episode, Living in the Flow. And what a month it's been. So full on, I must admit, the times, all of the things that have been coming up, all of the things that I've been experiencing on the inside and outside has been quite, for me, it feels quite monumental. And so welcome to each and everyone around the globe. It is evening here in winter here in Northern Australia. And hello over to you, dear Tanya.
Hello.
We've had a bit of a chat this week and a lot of love was exchanged. But I believe for you, a lot is happening as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so wonderful to be able to be here now on the planet. It's like, woo! And thank you to everyone who is over there today watching, or whoever will be with us at a further date, because it's there is no time and space limitation. And Alex, what a wonderful opportunity we had today. And you know, when we say we had a chat, actually we were just exchanging messages on Messenger, but the intensity of our exchange goes way beyond that. And the funny thing is, both of us noticed that even though we hardly ever chat other than when we have our Living in the Flow, we are always somehow in each other's backyard. So it's like we're neighbors. And Alex doesn't live in Australia and I don't live in Portugal. In a way, we live much closer by. So somehow in another dimension, we are always playing together and experiencing and exploring. But the fun thing is, we don't need to know what the hell we're doing, though we do get to experience the love growing. So that is a fun thing. So we can be doing this whatever we do when we're together the rest of the time, but we don't need to, as an incarnated human, to know what it is, but we can allow ourselves to receive the result of whatever it is that we are up to. And that is amazing, because in fact we already knew, all of us know and have known, that living from our essence, that living in deep, profound merge with our whole self, does produce special ease and grace, and that love is all there is. I mean, it's been said so often and in so many ways and by so many masters and in so many sacred books and whatever. And in fact, it is the sense that when everything else is removed, when the veil of illusion disappears, when separation is no longer there, there is nothing else really. But then, of course, there are many different flavors of that love, and that we can then experience in our conscious awareness. So we produce it somewhere in our multidimensionality, and we don't call it love over there. But here we get to bring it into this merge of human and divine and experiencing as something we call love. Love is something we created here on this planet, or the name or the notion of it, as opposed to fear. But it's not about what it means, it's about how we feel and sense connection. So basically, I would say that when everything else disappears, there's just connection. There's just a symbiosis between beings that have, in this case here on Earth, chosen to interact and chosen to be in a human experience. So it's been intense in all of love, in all loving senses. And I've had quite a few challenges which would naturally pull me the other way. And I will share further on in the show, but apparently there is nothing else to be lived in my reality. And so the outcome always brings me to, you know, just peace and harmony. There's no fight to be had. Over to you, my dear friend.
Yeah, it's been very, very full on for me as well. And I must admit that today I feel quite tired. So, you know, and I was, I'm so grateful that both of us are doing this, because we can kind of help each other. You know, it's so much easier to do it together like this. For me, what has happened in the last month, it kind of feels like I've been visited by all of the issues, the main life issues that I've had in this life, or, you know, that I've taken on. And it meant also I've spent a lot of time in a normal world, you know, not in my own space. I didn't really have that as much time as what I would normally have to sort of go, you know, to spend in my cave time, go for walks and go into the nature and stuff. And I've sort of dived into, like, I could feel the fear and the confusion that majority of people feel. And I kind of looked at all of the different lots of different points of view. I listened to a lot of different speakers and really dived into what is going on in the world right now, because I've been so not separate, you know, in my own world, in my own kind of flow, in my own self-love. And it feels like it has been like a different planet that we've lived in. We often talk about that. And just going back into the mass consciousness, I felt that incredible confusion and fear. And also, and not that I felt my own, not that I felt it, but I felt what is there. And I also could feel why people are sort of panicking so much, you know, why there is so much anxiety and fear that people are feeling. It's because there is no more solid ground. And, you know, where people in the past, it's been that, okay, if you hold a certain point of view, if you sort of give trust into a particular person, a particular news body, a particular, you know, scientist, a particular whatever, you could then perhaps choose that person and say, okay, they speak to my heart, they speak what I would say, and you could then follow that person. But now it's not like that anymore, because it's kind of like that trust is not there. And, you know, like, you can watch one interview with that person and you say, well, yeah, they're on my side, kind of my side. And then the next one you realize, oh no, they've shifted, you know, they're not anymore on my side. So it feels like there is nothing anymore that people can put their trust, that it would feel stable and solid. And it is scary in a way if you don't have that presence, if you don't feel the soul. Because for me, for example, I just come back to myself, and then I'm back into my own flow. I do a few deep breaths, and some of the energies do take perhaps longer to move, or they hang around for a few days, but I still always can feel that trust and the guidance, the inner guidance, and the solidity and the stability of that connection that I have with my own greater self, with my own soul, or whatever one wants to call it. And that is the saving grace that truly I was able to see just what an incredible saving grace, or what, I don't know how to express this. This is, it's a pot of gold. It's a bag of diamonds, because there is really nothing outside anymore that one can put their trust, that one can put their feet in and feel stable and feel solid and feel safe. Because it's not the economy, it's not the leadership, it's not the institutions, it's not the belief systems, it's not the sides. You know, you could be on the left, on the right, Democrat, Republican, this and that. and there just really isn't any security or safety or solidity anymore. The floor, it keeps changing, and people kind of are really floundering, and some of them are going back to like a more traditional way, you know, trying to hold their ground there. But even that is changing. It's kind of like as if as humanity, we're walking on this really moving ground, like we've gone onto a quicksand, you know, we're on the quicksand at the moment, and the quicksand, there is nothing solid. And so, but for me personally, I was kind of experiencing, it's like, especially at that time around 777, you know, we had that Friday, and then there was solar flares and the Schumann resonance spiking and so much going on. And I was kind of just noticing what kind of issues or feelings or emotions were visiting me over those 3 days. And it really had to do with all of the life issues that I was resolving, that I was trying to sort of reorient or find my own new relationship with them in a newer way. It's kind of all of those things have revisited me, but they haven't really stayed, because for me now it's very, very easy. Once I choose, okay, I'm back into my own flow, I can easily step into that. But Jesus, they felt intense, and it felt just right to play in those spaces. You know, they came, I sort of felt them, I sort of greeted them and let them go again. But it was very, very full on. Like I didn't, you know, apart from all of that, I didn't really have that much time to really, you know, do stuff like updating my website or thinking about the future. In those few days was really, really full on. And I also was able to appreciate and just honor all of the friendships that I made along the way, you know, where the people are here with me, which is not that many, but just over the internet, and with people are on the other side of the world. And yet, you know, just how stable and how supportive and how real and how authentic those friendships are, and how open that I can openly, you know, express and feel love. And just like you and I did, you know, just kind of like a ping pong, throwing to each other all that love and openness, and that's all we kind of need, you know. But it is just such an incredible, it reaches such depth and honesty and realness and rawness, that we don't need it for a long time, this connection, you know, like to interact 5 minutes maybe, and yet it uplifts and it reminds, and it kind of like massages, and it in this beautiful space. So I don't know, there's so much to unpack. I don't even know where to start, really, to be quite honest. But these were the kind of things that I was noticing a lot.
Yeah, and it is what I find and see is that it's like there's this the gates of the dam have been opened, and there's no way to contain the river. So on the side where usually it would be flowing very slowly, and so, you know, people can find their bearings, now a change is there to stay, and people are constantly invited to allow that massive influx of I would say grace. Actually, what's coming in is ease and grace, but the fear, I also see it in this way, is that our cells, our human cells, our DNA as human beings on this earth has known fear very intimately, has known change to be many times disappointing, painful, to produce suffering and all of these things. And now this strong influx that is coming in, and that is kind of going to substitute a lot of that density, a lot of that dark cloud that was around the cells, the human cells of the human body. As that comes in, it creates a kind of an anxiety, an agitation. It's like, oh no, 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 holding on, like those pieces of experience, of memory of experience that were solid ground, so to speak, that even though they weren't comfortable, so even though they were created in survival mode, even though they were created in fight, even though they were created in suffering, whatever. Anyway, that was solid ground because it was known to the cells. It's not known in an intellectual way. It is what has been the solid ground of our physicality so far. And now, with this huge influx of lightness, this huge influx of transformation, it creates a kind of an anxiety, a kind of an agitation, like, oh my God, I can't hold on anymore, because there is no way to, because that energy that is now available, that is coming from higher consciousness, is irreversible. It's just like when the gates of the dam are, like, if even, let's put it another way, the wall has broken. So, I mean, when the gates of the dam are open, you can close them, but the wall has cracked. So, and there's no way to repair that. There is no way to go back. And so the physicality of people is just screaming in panic in order to avoid being swept away. But swept away it is, and that is what is happening and will continue happening inevitably. I had a really interesting experience last week. We had a really beautiful celebration we have here in Tomar every 4 years, and it only happens every 4 years because it's a huge endeavor. And so it is a celebration. It was already a celebration before the Catholic Church took it over as a celebration of the Holy Spirit. But before that, it already existed, and basically it's an ode to abundance, to the bounty of nature, to the yielding of the crops and all that. And also there are a lot of flowers involved, so it's very feminine. Basically, I would say it's more of an ode to the goddess, to the divine feminine.
And that's what Holy Spirit is
exactly. That's what I was
yeah.
going to say. And so, funnily enough, so the church took it on and calls it Holy Spirit as if it were a masculine name, but basically Holy Spirit is the glue that holds everything together, which is the feminine principle. And so it's interesting because it continues in the same nature. So it hasn't lost its nature. And the beautiful thing here is that the whole town, and I mean the whole municipality, it's not only in town, it's the whole municipality, gets together, and people gather in garages and attics and whatever to make these paper flowers and the decorations that then this year, funnily enough, there were 33 decorated streets in town, and they're fully decorated. I mean, it's just incredible the amount of work and detail that goes into creating these streets that all have a theme. The theme is chosen by the people who are the committee of that street.
And 33 is Christ consciousness, isn't it?
Exactly. So that's why I found it really interesting. 33 this year. And they get together throughout a year or so, every day or most days, like people just have to keep on doing it. And then the streets only stay decorated for 5 days, and then it's all taken down. It's incredible. because it's also an invitation to putting one's whole heart into something. And basically it's all volunteer, so no one gets paid to do any of this. So it's a massive volunteer endeavor where people just get to share with each other, to cooperate, to get angry at each other, to whatever. But basically the end result is just wow. And in the street where I have a shop that we are now refurbishing, that used to be a gym, but the person has left. That street usually is one of the ones that are decorated, but the people from the street got angry at each other last time. So no, they didn't want to organize it this year. So another committee got together from a nearby village within the municipality, and they decided to do it themselves. And so the main organizer of that committee, they were only mainly 6 people, and then some friends that came in and out. And he calls me and asks if I could lend them the shop for 2 weeks. I said, no way, because we're fixing it. But I don't mind that lending it to you for 2 or 3 days or whatever you need on the week of the decorations where you need space to bring stuff. And he said, okay. So they came on Tuesday. So the street had to be ended by 8 p.m. Wednesday. They came on Tuesday afternoon, and then they started towards the end of the afternoon. And they were working in our shop, just finishing off everything. And they were working all night straight, no sleep. And started putting up the stuff and all that. And the theme was the discovery. So the 16th century discoveries, when our navigators from Portugal went out and thought that there was nothing else in the world, and then started discovering that actually there was much more, and many more cultures, many more people, and many more tastes and scents and art and everything. Well, and that Tomar was one of the main epicenters of that period. So a lot of things, a lot of decisions, a lot of things were done from our Christ Convent and Castle and all that. So the theme of that street happened to be that. But so we arrived, me, Joanna, and Pedro, we usually work together for our stuff, our projects. And we arrived in the morning because obviously we weren't gonna just stay and work all night and stuff. It's just not part of our consciousness to just get exhausted. So when we arrived at about 8:30, people were getting angry at each other, weary, tired, just like kids when you don't sleep. And so we arrived and asked, okay, so what can we do to help? We're here to help, because we were going to work, but then the whole shop was full of paper flowers everywhere and we couldn't work. So we said, look, we're here, we're available, we're ready to help you. And this guy who'd called me, the main organizer, was really frustrated at that point because they were trying to put up something and it wasn't working, whatever. So and no one else knew what to delegate, because he's the one who had the idea in his mind, and so he was the one who had to delegate. And so we were just looking and enjoying and watching. And then finally he did give us a task. We performed that task, then another task, and then but people were getting more and more irritable, obviously, because they were super tired. And we were very happy, of course, because we had rested and all. And so we just stayed and helped and whatever. And at some point, the man says to me, never again are we going to do something on this street, because there's something about this street, nothing is working out the way we want it to. And I was like, oh, well, fortunately, they don't know that we do have a kind of an influence on this because of living in the flow. So basically what happens is the invitation to change and adjust is just there all the time when you are living in that flow. And then everyone that comes into your vicinity will be challenged by that. And so what happened was there was a bit of wind. And so then a part of the street didn't work out the way they wanted it because things were flying off with the wind and they couldn't fix them and whatever. And so they had to change the whole plan. And then the man was saying, oh, but I have a really bad time when things don't work out the way I want them to. And we were just, oh, well, yeah, but you know, there's nothing else to do. So how are you going to change this? Or he was just about to give up and leave half of the stuff to be done. And we were there insisting, you know, okay, so what else could we do? Oh, could we maybe put that there or that there? And his sister, who was there, she just hated us. She just wanted us to go away because we were always saying, yeah, but let's do it a different way. Why don't we, like, you know, you've had so much work all this year creating all of these flowers. There are so many. Are you just gonna take this home and not put it up and just give up? I mean, let's find another way. Anyway, at the end of the day, we did manage a little bit to get more of it up. And the lady's still angry at us anyway. But and then they took a lot of stuff home, but of course on a bit just compared to the whole street, because the street is huge. And at some point we were saying, what are you going to do with all of this stuff once it ends? And the lady said, oh, it's all going to go in the rubbish. And I'm, what? No way. Well, anyway, you know what happened? The guy got 3 phone calls and they all wanted to buy the street decorations for other celebrations. And so then they managed to sell them to a place that's having the celebration this weekend. And so at the end of the day, it didn't go in the rubbish. just like we were like, oh my God, no, not immediately. I mean, why don't you reuse it? There are other ways. No, it's just going in the rubbish. And then it didn't. But anyway, just to say that people are being challenged left, front, and center to adapt to circumstances, to flow with the changes, to discover new ways, to embrace the invitation of these new ways that comes their way, and to come into harmony with whatever is presenting itself, no matter what it seems to be. So the invitation is not to look at it as something negative, as something that shouldn't be happening, but as, oh, okay, things aren't going according to planned. I mean, that's been the story of my life, at least for the last 10 years, very intensely. Before it was 2. I mean, it's the story of everyone's life, really, if you come to look at it and really see change is there all the time. And there has never been any solid ground. We just had this illusion that there was some sort of solid ground, but it hasn't been there. And that's why there is so much anguish when people are faced with dire challenges, when things don't go as planned, which is most of the time. So, but it will be happening more and more and more. So basically, if people who are going through challenges right now can just take a deep breath and accept that this is here to stay and it will only get worse, which I mean better. And why is what mostly is thought to be worse better? Because it gives us the opportunity to get into the flow of creatorship, and to be able to choose which way we want to navigate, to choose what we want to create hereafter, because finally we are no longer doomed to be conditioned by that solid ground that we knew before. It's over. The ceiling has gone. There was a ceiling there. It's not there anymore. And that is the blessing. Though, of course, it does bring its challenges with it, because we're talking about massive change in perspectives, in the way things are done, in the way the world functions. The world we know or have known in the past 50 years or so will not be the same. Maybe let's say in the next 15 or 20 years. Things are changing at a rate, and of course it's not the same every year, but I mean, things are changing at such a rapid rate that either we do flow with it, or it really becomes super challenging. So it was interesting to observe how these people were dealing with those situations. That then at the end, the man was super happy because he managed to hand the legacy that they had produced to someone else. The lady was still angry anyway, and so she will be having her own experiences. And all in all, everyone who was in that experience had their own vision, their own way of perceiving it. But everyone who visited that street was impressed, uplifted, and inspired. So in fact, the final result, which is that that's the aim, happened. No matter whether the monster, because there's the sea monster in the Lusíadas from Camões, which is one of our great epic writers, actually the only epic writer, and this big monster of the seas, which is called the Damastor, the man wasn't even going to put it there, because he said the place where he was going to put it wouldn't work because of the wind. And we were so insistent, like, no, bring it, please put it there. Well, people took photos with this monster all the time. Every day I went to that street. And so it's just, okay, it's not exactly the way I thought it was going to be, but maybe it's even better than the way I thought it was going to be. And so that keeps on happening in my life all the time. And it's interesting because each time for instance, if I have to discuss a tough issue with someone, and if I think about what I'm going to say or how the conversation is going to go, thing is that when we do get together, none of it happens that way, because somehow there's this kind of influx of lightness, of magic that comes from my presence or whatever. It comes there, it just changes the whole thing, and half of the conversations that were to be had do not happen if they are to be happening in an angry way. So if there's stuff that is to be said that would somehow be producing some sort of fight, usually they don't happen. If they do happen anyway, they always come to an outcome which is for more harmony for both parties. So it's been really amazing to observe that once we are out of drama, and once we are no longer really choosing the way of having to be right, of fight, of justifying, of no matter how right you are, it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter at all. At the end of the day, what matters is that that situation moves on. So it doesn't matter who's right or wrong or whatever. What matters is that it's resolved. And once we are not in victimhood, We are not also wanting to save anyone or anything. We are not anymore in the abuser role either. Things just move on in the most natural way, because we're not holding on to any kind of egomaniac need to be right, or to have things our way, or to justify the way we see things because that is the way, or whatever. It's just so simple, just simple. You get there, it's like a magic wind comes, and all of a sudden most of the conversation doesn't even happen. The situation gets resolved and each one moves and goes their own way, and it's done, and you don't need to think about it ever again. It's incredible. So that is also, again, part of this influx, which invites us to be flexible beyond anything we've ever been before. Because if we can be flexible, things just move and change and transform in such abundant, beautiful, generous ways that we never know the outcome, because it's way beyond what we could conceive from the other ground that we were used to. It's beyond. And no matter where the people we are interacting with are in their conscious awareness, anyway, it doesn't matter. What matters is where you are at, and that determines every single interaction, every single outcome, absolutely everything in your life. So even if there are challenges, yes, even if there are shitty situations and tough people to deal with, it just moves on with the flow of this strong river that is coming in, and there's nothing to hold on to, nothing to hold on to, no need to either, because we are safe in the flow, not on the solid ground we thought we were safe on. So the solid ground is our soul, and our soul is constantly in motion.
Exactly. It's constantly dynamic, and it is such a different kind of way to be, isn't it? Like, and so we can see now when we look back at, like, let's say the last decade, for me, especially the last decades, because there's been such a complete change and reorienting of how to do things. And, you know, like from what the perception was of a solid ground as to what this, the continual movement and dynamic way of being is. And all of the change of the values and the change of how I do, and like this, that, you know, like in the old days, it was important, and it was actually looked upon with favor, that if somebody was like a rock, you know, solid like a rock, and didn't change their views, because that was what the heroes of the old used to be looked upon, because they didn't, you know, nobody could change their views, and you know, they held on to their own things regardless of what was going on, or if, you know, people tried to change them, or if they were caught and went through battles, and yet still they held on to those ideas. So now doing that is actually quite, like you so beautifully explained, it's actually quite the opposite now. You know, having some kind of opinion that doesn't change, it actually hurts now. It hurts, because exactly, because it gets, like you said, it gets stuck. So you can't really, not only that you can't, I mean, you can try to, but it's just pointless, because it's so easy to see, you know, like, you know, taking sides is such a pointless thing, because you can see the good and the not so perhaps good of both sides. And then there is also an idea, or a how can I say, the feeling of wholeness when both of those sides come together, and something completely different is born out of both sides, you know. So I don't know how, yes, I don't actually even have words to really describe all of the things that that is happening, but it just feels like there's this, like I mentioned, I think a couple of days ago, that it's just birth, something, even if it is uncomfortable and at times a little bit painful and at times a little bit whatever, but I can feel this new world being born, and I can feel all of its not some of its features and the excitement about it. But at the same time, just like, you know, when a child is born, you can see a little bit of what they're like, but they're still very much like, it's a big question as to, because we don't know what they're going to be like when they grow up, when they're adults, you know. So it is very exciting, it's beautiful, and it's also very innocent, and it is also still very much I think that later some things will be a little bit more defined, but at the moment it's kind of like a child when they're born, and they're just a big feeling, you know, they're just a big feeling. There's not even a mind, but it's just this beautiful, innocent, open, vulnerable, like, you know, to being that this new world feels to me like. And it feels like also that all of the things that we've been doing up to now, they are coming with, but very transformed. And I think like all of the people, you know, sometimes people that are, let's say, listening and they're attracted to like this space, you know, sometimes they've been wondering, oh, what is my role in this new world, what is my future? But I think that if you really look at the world of every day, you know, these skills of how to flow, how to be in this new way, how to relate to soul, how to even feel the soul, these people will need someone to really be a standard, to really teach them, to really show them what it is like when you trust, how you be, how you relate, how you have the different values, you know. And like you said, people do notice, because our radiance can't be ignored anymore. And also just us to, how can I say, it's funny because it almost feels like it's the opposite, because I feel myself incredibly stable and unmovable and
Yeah,
not unchangeable, but there is nothing in the world that can
stability.
happen that can move me away from what I know, this soul, this relationship with my soul, or the feeling of how I feel myself to be as this bigger, grander being, or the I am that I am, however we explain it, like that feeling. So in some ways everything is movable, but in some ways at the same time everything is so incredibly stable, but not in a hard stone way, but in just this, I don't know, is it a conviction, or what? It's just this knowingness that I am safe. I have this safe space.
Yeah.
I am a soul. I am a soul in this grand play that is called the earth. You know, I am eternal. I am forever. All of these truths, all of these facts are so solid and at the same time flowing and changing, that, you know, whatever would happen outside in the world, it doesn't matter. But yeah, for people that don't have these kind of skills, you know, this is why we are here, because and I think like the people that at the moment perhaps wonder what they're going to be doing the next 10-20 years, I think all of us have our job cut out for us because, you know, because this new way of being is so different and no one else is really teaching that, because you have to have this experience of what it's like to be with soul and as soul. You can't, there like you can, you know, perhaps some mystics like Rumi, you know, you can read their poetry and you can feel the truth of what they're saying, but all of these, like we talked last time, you know, the education is not teaching anything of that. And yet, you know, many young people, they instinctively already know how to do this as well, because they are not solid as a rock at all, you know, and they are struggling in the institutions that are of the old.
And I find also that even people who have been in spiritual circles for many, many decades or many years, whatever, and that now see the new world or the new earth that is being born as having to fit into a certain kind of way, like, okay, so now it has to be about building communities that are self-sustainable. Yes, yes, and no. So yes, and there can be and should be and must be and will be for sure communities that are self-sustainable, but there is the rest of the world. And what if we can bring that self-sustainability into towns and cities and everywhere where people live, and people can realize that no matter where they live, they can create these connections that, because we can't be self-sustainable alone. That is just the way it is, full stop. No matter how sovereign we are as human beings, we come here to experience connection with each other, and we co-create. Because even like when you go to the supermarket, you go, imagine you go alone to the supermarket. So what vehicle do you use? Okay, if you walk, right, you're using your own body. What clothes are you wearing? Someone has to have made them. Okay, you make your own clothes. Okay, what fabric are you using? It has to have come from somewhere. Oh, I collect my own whatever, wool or fabric or whatever. Okay, but someone has to have helped collect it or whatever. No matter what, we think that no one is an island. No matter how sovereign, how masterful we are, even when living, like imagine someone who goes and lives out in a kind of in a monastery or whatever. It's a community. Okay, someone can go out into the forest and live alone, right, for some whatever purpose or reason. That is an experience and it can be had, but it is not the end result of coming into the human experience. Many times it happens as a result of wanting to turn our backs on all of the confusion so that we can find our bearings, so that we can come back into connection. And sooner or later, usually the connection then starts again, one way or another. So we are not islands. The human experience is about co-creation. So we are sovereign, we create, and we are master creators of our own reality. Yes, for sure. But our own reality is a mix of many different people's realities and peoples and beings and other intelligent forms of life, like animals and plants and rocks and whatever, because all have their own intelligence. So and having said that, people can, of course, and should and will, and that's wonderful, create communities which are self-sustainable with each other and together, that will create a wonderful vibration, a very strong consciousness that goes out into the world. And then I invite the people who are doing that, who are already doing that or somehow dreaming it up and making it happen, to then also bring it further and share those experiences and eventually open the scope even more and realize that people living in apartments, people living in whatever kind of dwelling, no matter where, can create self-sustainability, but for that it has to be done together, in the sense that we can go beyond depending on corporations, depending on the government, depending on the ones that we thought were the ones that could have the decisive power. to change the world, the way, whatever, to change the way we perceive, live, to change the economy, to change whatever. But in fact, being self-sustainable is realizing, wait a minute, it's not about what the government decides or what the president of the municipality decides or what the big corporations decide, or no, of course not, because as people, as consumers, as social beings, as human beings, as creators, we have tremendous and total decisive power. Now, if everyone decides to stop whatever, it will stop. It just stops. That's it. Now, of course, that's not going to happen, that everyone decides to, well, stop buying this or stop doing that or whatever. That's totally insane, and it isn't even necessary. The thing is that when people get together, whether they're like-minded or not doesn't really matter. And that's what I'd like to invite people who are in spiritual circles and have this vision that only goes that way or in that direction, to realize that it is in interacting with people that are diverse, not necessarily like-minded, that we can create more harmony. Because it's not in trying to convince each other of our own truth, of each one's own truth, but in bringing those pieces of truths of experience, right? Because the truth for us is what we experience, is what is tangible for us, is in bringing those pieces of experience together to form something that we have never discovered before. And I mean,
and to look for things that are in common, rather than, for example, looking for, oh, that person. And this is what I see in some of the spiritual communities, that actually creates paranoia and separation, and it's still very much feeling like living in the fear, because it's like rejecting the other side. But that means it's just rejecting huge part of oneself, you know, because there is a part of the self that also carries the opposite. That's the whole thing, you know. And so when we work with people that are actually not, like you said, that are not of the same mind, they have incredible skills of their own. They have incredible rich and knowledge that perhaps we don't have, and together we can co-create, and also then build those bridges between the differences, you know, rather than the separation and oh, that person is bad and that person is bad. And whatever, or they did that like 20 years ago, you know, like there's this word now, cancel culture, where you're not supposed to like someone. Okay, maybe they've said one bad thing, but they're not supposed to, you know, like even, for example, you're not supposed to like old movies like from the 80s or 90s, or because, you know, they were saying things that are sexist or whatever, you know.
But then there's the trendy group that only watches that, because then that becomes a very intellectual stream of culture and whatever. So who's to say who's right and wrong?
Absolutely. And so they cancel now. That's what cancel culture means, is because like, let's say someone said, you know, they acted in a movie. That's just an example. They acted in a movie in the 80s and 90s, which was actually very different. Those times were very different than now. But because they acted according, you know, because they were filmed in that time, and they acted according to the norms of that time, but now we're supposed to cancel them, meaning that they are irrelevant because they did that 20 years ago. It like there's such, how can I say, like what I see in kind of more the normal world is that some of the ideas that I too had in the past, that's the thing, I had them like, you know, in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, whatever. And when you carry those ideas to the end result, all of them, it doesn't matter, even if they were good ideas, they looked positive and they looked at that time, you know, revolutionary or whatever, they actually, when you carry them to the end, they end up crap. You know, they end up obscene. Like, either side, as only the half does not produce wholeness. You have to
Yeah.
bring both together to have wholeness. And that
Yeah.
like so comes so beautifully, like in working with everyone and being able to just be open-minded and listen to the person, you know, and listen to what they say and finding that common ground. Then you realize, wow, they're much more like me than what I thought. It is just when I was in those ideas of what the other person is that gap was actually then created, you know. And the thing is, like, if people, like, they're talking about, you know, being abundant and doing things and creating their own business and whatever, you have to go out in the world and interact with all sorts of people that can help you, you know. Perhaps you don't have technical knowledge, or perhaps you don't have that, and you meet all these people in all these different spheres that have that knowledge and can co-create together if you look for those kind of similarities. So for me, like, all of those ideas, you know, there are parts of me, if there were parts of me that still had those old outdated ideas, I really, like, all of that veil has just has to go, and it
Yeah.
had to go. And we're entering in this new world with this new into this new energy, like that baby, you know, completely new, completely open, and open with that curiosity that wants to explore and expect different things than what were before. Because otherwise, because being a co-creator, if I keep expecting things and people to act in a way that they were before, then I will continue to create the old world.
Yeah.
And now it really means to be, you know, vulnerable, open, curious, to what and how this energy work, to what I can do with it, how it is new, what I can learn, how I can, you know, mold it. But, and I don't mean mold it in the old way, but how I can be a creator, playing with the energy as it comes, as it keeps surprising me, as it being flavored with a being dynamic, so changeable, so incredibly not reactive, but so incredibly in tune with how I'm radiating, what I'm radiating at that moment, and so incredibly warm and loving, and so incredibly also it straight away expresses exactly who I am and what I am. And that's what I was going to mention before, that one of the huge issues that the old world has, and that people that have not gone yet through this transformation, is because the old world needs people to play roles, to not be real, to not be raw and authentic in a way that you are who you are. Because in the old world, it all means it's all about faking it and being like, okay, if you go, you know, if you go to a job, or if you go, I don't know, you have to pretend to be someone who you're not, you know, and you have to put on that mask, and you have to put on, you're not real. You're never expressing who you really are. You're never expressing your feelings. You're just constantly supposed to digest what other people and what the education is telling you, and what the norms are at your, whether you're at school, at your job place, at your whatever. You know, like, you have to be like this, you have to be like this, you have to be like this, but it's all fake. You don't really feel it, because unless you've actually gone through the transformation, you can't really feel the authentic love. You can't really feel the realness, the rawness, you know. And people are afraid of who they really are, because they do in their private spaces, they do know that they're not what they pretend to be, you know. So there is this huge, that is one of those things that is also very anxiety, how can I say, it creates anxiety, because the realness of themselves, the rawness, they can't really keep it down anymore. And that's where also, you know, a lot of the mental health pills and medication happens, because I noticed that every time there's all this influx, people who are on those medications, they go a little bit like really out of their, they really suffer a lot because they don't know how to deal with these things, because so much all of their realness is trying to come out, and yet they don't know how to be real because the education hasn't taught them how. Actually, quite the opposite. Everyone is taught to suppress all of their realness, to be, and especially in the sides. This is actually the funny thing is, for people who are maybe, into politics and into the sides, people who have been what used to be called spiritual and progressive and all of that, because those people are, when you are like that, a lefty, what is called a lefty, let's say, you are incredibly self-critical of yourself, because you are not always kind. You are not always accepting, especially if you haven't gone through the transformation. You pretend, you try, and then you suppress and you criticize, and you're constantly trying to find all these techniques of how you can be kind, how you can be present, how you can be, all of these things, because the mind knows the words, but it doesn't know how to do it. It doesn't know that you're supposed to go through the deep transformation where you integrate your shadow, when you integrate all your darkness, and then you can really be real, because you can actually, then you don't suppress anymore, you don't pretend you don't have that darkness, you don't pretend you don't have hate and all of these human things, but you just can choose. And then until that real transformation again happens, the next level where those things don't even exist within you anymore. But it's not because you've criticized them and you've tried to push them down, so it's quite a, like, I find the whole thing quite fascinating. So I kind of go and dive into all of these, the lefties and the righties, and I could just feel how they experience things. And at the moment, the righties have an easier time because they're they're a little bit more allowing of their darkness, but the lefties who pretend to just be this light and kindness and whatever, they're having a really hard time at the moment, because all of that is trying to come out, and because they have this idea that they're nice, then they can't really deal with the fact that perhaps they are not, they have this dark side. So I mean, I'm giggling, but because I remember me the way I was, and I can so relate to that. But it is quite serious, like people having really hard time, and this is where we step in. But like you said, we can't change anybody, but we can just, put ourselves out there and look, here I am. If you want some assistance, here I am. There are quite a lot of us, that, and we are available. But people have to go through all of those, also all of their prejudices as well. Because, for example, let's say if someone has been scientists or, like a rational person or whatever, all of these, they have such strong directives within them, to not even be allowed to say soul or words like that, because, only the crazy people say things like that, or the hippies, or the whomever, whatever words they use for people they don't like, so they have to kind of really step into a world that is quite frightening in many ways to them, because they've had such prejudices against those people that now they too are asked to become. So, and like, and the women don't know how to be women, and men, because there all of these ideas and all of these directives and words that people are very confused with everything. It's all kind of like hurricane, not a hurricane or one of those tornadoes came, and it lifts, you know how
Yeah.
it lifts everything up, it takes everything to bits and it's all up in the air, you know, and yet people still have to kind of live in a normal way, you know, go to work, look after children, blah blah blah, do all of these things while they're in this tornado. So it's quite incredible. Like I mean, and for me, I can go in and dive in and then come back, but gee, I feel those confusion, and I feel their fear, and I feel their being lostness, and I don't know whether us going into those spaces assists, you know, or not, but Jesus, yeah,
I find
it's
it
not
assists
easy.
in the strangest ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes it assists in a way that opens things up for people. Other times it challenges them so much that they close up even more.
Even more, yeah.
It
But
depends, and whatever.
yeah,
Many times it just our presence brings in
some light, you know,
something, yeah.
yeah,
And but
yeah.
that light cracks things, so
Mm.
things break, whatever. I mean, it cracks the wall open. And for instance, actually it's interesting because the light that we bring in is not from that kind of perspective of when many people who do that still, but yeah, like in the time when we used to say, you know, much light to you or whatever, stuff like that.
Yes,
which doesn't make sense to me at all, because
that, yeah.
if you're gonna send much light to someone, that can wreak a lot of havoc, because the darkness is there hiding, and it will bring things forward. So, well, whatever. Anyway, it's interesting. I find it a very interesting kind of thing to write, that people write at the end of an email or whatever, much light and so on.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
The light we bring in is not necessarily light in that sense of that very kind of
it's not, it doesn't
figurative
appear.
idea of light as being the good in a sense. No, it is to enlighten what resides hidden. And that's why it sometimes becomes challenging, or our presence brings in the light, for sure, because there is nothing hiding inside of us. So because we don't have anything hiding, we bring in that intensity, that shine, that glow of there not being anything hiding. But that can be either received with joy and gratitude and, oh wow, I really love to be with you, or whenever you show up, somehow things just get easier. This happens very, very often with me, and like people smile at me out of the blue for no reason in the street and stop for me to pass and open the doors and all sorts of stuff, you know, just kind of like just to be a little bit there in that. And then there are the others that would run as fast as they can in the other direction, because it's like they've seen the devil himself or herself or whatever one wants to qualify that as. But they don't know why. They have no idea why. Well, it's just because there's so much stuff hiding that our presence challenges all of that. And so it is, there is no sort of ready-made recipe.
No, there isn't.
You know, to be in everyone's favor. No. It's actually hilarious.
And I've been noticing that, especially in the last couple of weeks, really, how you know, this effect on it hasn't been, but it kind of has intensified lately. Like, you know, that some people, it's a jarring effect, and they have this real dislike of me, and some people they really like all of a sudden without me saying anything,
Yeah.
or just sitting there. And like again, I have to really use those, come back to self, because it's so easy to feel again on the outside, and again, the rejection and all of these kind of things, if people still have those things at the surface, these kind of events can really play into them. But in some ways it is also tiring, to kind of continually experience that. So that's why, I guess, is why our non-physical friends keep reminding us also is to make sure to take that time in nature, to come back to self. That is just so important. And it's not about
relevant.
Yeah, and it's not about being a hero, or it's not about being a martyr at all. It's like, you have to look after yourself, and we do need that kind of time to be. But there's just, oh my God, at the same time, I've kind of regained my curiosity. I've always been very curious about all of these, what's happening in the world, and I've kind of come back to that again, but in a different way. And I just love traveling and swimming in all of these things, and just see what kind of happens, and how people react, and of all this, this pool of ideas and belief systems that the humanity has. And because now I can actually go in fearlessly without worrying that it's going to hurt me, or it's going to injure me, or it's going to break my heart, or because I have those skills or ability or whatever. I don't know how to express that, but to come back to self. But I've realized that, like all of those things that have been the life that have followed me through life, all of those themes, they never really kind of go away. They just keep developing, and they keep transforming in a new way. Do you find that as well?
Yes, yes, it's interesting. It's really interesting, because under the light of compassion, everything just transforms in such incredible ways, that it becomes whole. Really, that's what I find.
But it doesn't go away. It's like,
exactly, it becomes one whole. Then there's no this and that. It's just a whole new scenario. That that has all of those elements that were there before.
And the things that you like, for example, it can come back. It comes back in a new way, or things that you were interested in, like when you were 10 or 20 or 30. That's what I find so fascinating. And all of the things that I've done, all of the things are utilized now. Like in everything that I do, all of the things. So nothing has been wasteful.
Nothing has gone to waste.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And things even that I thought that I looked down upon, I thought, that's not such an important era of my life. This 1 year I was doing this and whatever. But from this other perspective, everything is just as important as everything else. There isn't a less important and more important. And it kind of comes back in a new way. And I'm thinking, wow, it's kind of like that spiral, you keep going up. And I know we've kind of given away the spiral, but I do keep coming back to it, because, it's not like when I say, oh, I'm a new person now. I still like the same things I did, but it's just in a very new way. So
that's the thing. It's like, yes, we are new in that sense that, we're in discovery, but on the other hand, this incarnation that we are in right now has specific qualities to it, and those they just remain, and then they become more refined, or whatever, but we are still the one that the soul incarnated into in this lifetime is the one that is here now, obviously not needing to hold on to certain truths or certain ways of being, and being flexible and changing. But on the other hand, there are things that are the underlying fragrance of us that remain, that are just that signature. And that is irrelevant anyway, because each incarnation has that, you know, that specific fragrance, and it doesn't have to have even any connection with other lifetimes, because each lifetime is an experience. Obviously we come in from other lifetimes and bring in all of that, so basically we become a very multi-layered fragrance from when we bring everything together. I mean, when we integrate the whole thing. But the integrator, the one that is here now, is this incarnation, and this incarnation deserves so much honor, because it's the one which we have chosen other times to step up, but this one we managed. So yay.
And exactly, and in many ways it feels like I saw a meme the other day, and it was just so beautiful, and it reminds me, wow, what a beautiful change of perspective. Is, you know, how when we talk about the human self and the soul self and whatever, but it said like that we've never actually been human really until now.
Yeah,
because it's like,
that's the thing.
It was the let's say
we were running away from it.
Yeah, and Yeshua, for example, all of those people, you know, that we call big mystics like Yeshua, that have demonstrated, you know, like Mary Magdalene and whatever, they were kind of human. They were really human in a way that because they've had opened their heart, because they had compassion, because they allowed their souls, what we call the soul self, to be part of their life. So this is being fully human. So it's not like, it's funny because, you know, like we thought that with this descending of these greater parts of ourselves, of this what we call soul
would be
self,
less human.
But it's actually, we're for the first time becoming fully human, and that's just such a beautiful way, you know, to look at that after, let's say, for those that were in the new age and all of that, after a lifetime of trying to escape being a human, or perhaps, you know, like that it's very fashionable in these spaces to dislike humanity and to try to run away,
to criticize, and
it is from a good core. It is from a good place in the heart, because like you see, you have this feeling of what is possible, and then there's that reality of what, let's say, humanity is doing, and you see all this heartbreak and suffering. And so it's not from a negative place that this criticism comes from, or the dislike of humanity, or trying to, you know, run away from suffering and pain. It's normal and natural to try and do that. But then it all kind of comes back, because when you so-called heal yourself, when you become whole, or when you realize or enlighten yourself in this way, it's this kind of full circle or full spiral or whatever, that you actually become more human, because it doesn't hurt anymore. There's no more suffering. And when you look at others, of course you can feel it, but it doesn't break your heart to see other people still choosing to suffer, you know, and still choosing to go by way of pain, by way of holding on to those outdated beliefs, by way of holding on to their justification of their pain and resentment and all of that kind of stuff, you know. But you can actually see how each and every person has a choice, you know. But because before, let's say, when you start opening your heart, and you're first going on or stepping onto this journey, you don't have that maturity yet to be able to see that. So all you do is you're opening yourself up to this incredible pain and suffering of humanity. And of course it's natural to want to run away. So, you know, even on this, you can then have a very, very different point of view as to how you view yourself when you've gone and you've been that, and you can giggle, but also you can have this incredible compassion for just how much we've changed. Like when I look at myself back 20 years, 30 years, oh my gosh, like, oh, how much, and then what profound depth I have changed. And And all I had to really do was just to follow the lead of my I am that I am, of my soul self, of my wisdom, of my knowingness, of me, as a whole being. And it was so safe, and it was so sacred, this journey and into wholeness, and at the same time realizing that I never really was not whole. So it's that kind of funny place where both are true at the same time, in this incredibly beautiful way. And just now feeling into it, I have so much respect for each and every person, each and every human being, regardless of where they are at in their journey. So when I look at them in this way, I very often, like, they get so serious about their point of view or whatever it is, whatever, and yet all I can do is just laugh. Lucky I'm not in the room with them, I'm just on my computer, but you can just laugh because it's in some ways so hilarious, really, when you see these gigantic souls, this gigantic I am that I am, pretend to be this disconnected tiny little being. When you actually see them as a whole, it's actually quite funny. And I know that all of the mystics of the old, that's what they said, that sometimes they could just sit on the side of the road or in the middle of the road and just start laughing in the face of in the face of all of this drama and the beauty and the canvas that we call humanity. So I'm a little bit mystical today, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, it is. And to wrap up this, I just like to add that there is really no secret the way, like how to find one's way through the suffering, whatever. But there is one thing that is essential, and that is acceptance. Acceptance is basically the key to make the journey easier, because as long as something is not acceptable, it creates a wall, it creates a no inside of us, and that is what creates the pain. So even the pain has to at some point be accepted fully, so that we can move beyond it. The suffering, the pain, and all of the emotions and everything has to come to a point of such complete acceptance within us that we are no longer trying to avoid being responsible. And when I say being responsible, so is it that a child, for instance, that was abused sexually, etc., responsible for what happened, in the sense that they were the one who made it happen? No, that's not what I'm saying. When I say, and when we say take responsibility, what we mean is you have the choice in your hand right now to accept this completely, and that is taking responsibility. Or to keep on trying to avoid it, to keep on trying to deny it, because many times when there are very, very, very tough situations, they are residing in denial. They are hiding somewhere in the background, screaming loud, but being denied. And taking responsibility is saying to oneself, okay, I hear you. And when the truth comes out of what happened, whatever it is, whatever experience it was that has been hiding in the recesses of one's subconscious or unconscious mind, and when it comes out, is not going into shock, not going into disbelief in any way. Taking responsibility is, in fact, coming into such a level of acceptance, which is, in other words, compassion, that nothing is not a part of our experience. So taking responsibility is allowing everything that has been in our experience to be here now, so that it can be transmuted, transformed, and so that the richness of whatever it is, no matter what, without acceptance, there is not real responsibility, and therefore real sovereignty, and therefore the capacity to flow and to move beyond the suffering, beyond the pain, beyond the fear, all of that. So to anyone out there who might be experiencing a bit of resistance, like if you find that you notice you're not in balance, but you don't want to accept it, that creates the pain, that creates the suffering. That is not you taking responsibility for the fact that, okay, things are really not in balance right now. Let me stop. Let me look at this. Let me invite it in, not throw it out, not tell it to go away, not pretend it's happening somewhere in another dimension, or wanting it to be happening in another dimension, though it's happening right here, right now in this dimension. Taking responsibility is acceptance. Acceptance is taking responsibility. And all of this is compassion. And without this, it becomes harder and harder and harder to navigate this really strong flow that is happening right now, and that is being offered on a golden platter to everyone. Some will take it, others won't, and that's just perfectly fine. Coming to acceptance with that is also part of coming to balance, to harmony with being human. And we know what it's been like, and everyone is entitled to know that as well, in their own way, in their own time, in their own experience. We are not entitled to take away anyone else's experience, no matter how hard it seems to be to us and how easy it would be to blow it away. That's not the point. So acceptance.
And it's just
fully.
that, and it's just that feeling of that incredible sacredness, and the feeling of also that maturity. So when you actually can bring home these parts that were in that suffering, that there is incredible feeling of sacredness, but you can't describe, like you have to experience to describe. And also, then you feel so mature, because you are you've been able to do that. You've been able to feel this incredible compassion to your own parts that have experienced that. So when we say no to those parts, we're basically just really wounding those parts double time, So the first time they were wounded when they were actually present in that initial situation, and then they are constantly wounded again and again, because your own face is turning away from them, and your own face is saying, no, I don't want you, and so when you actually allow them to come home, it feels incredibly sacred.
Can you all feel it right now? Now that we are sharing it, if you can, like, just feel it and sense it, and allow the sacredness, just really touch it. And that's it. Now just keep it going, keep it coming back home. Just keep on allowing. It's tangible right now.
It is.
In this moment.
It is, absolutely. And I guess, dear Tanya, we're complete with this incredible, tangible, compassionate acceptance. Until next time. So keep
And
that
next
feeling
time will
alive.
be in September.
Yes.
The link is already available on our websites because this time we created them very early for the whole year. And
so there's no
check out
living
our
in the flow in
websites.
August.
Right. There's no living the flow in August. Check out our websites. There's loads of yummy stuff going on. We're both just discovering and experiencing and expressing and sharing a lot. And meanwhile, over and over again, whenever a thought of conflict, of rejection comes up, take a deep breath
and come
back
back to
to
this
acceptance.
This tangible living compassion.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Until next time.
Until next time.